Okay, good afternoon and Habari Gani, everyone. This is our 45th annual Pre-Kwanzaa celebration. The actual celebration of Kwanzaa begins on December 26th. But at Stockton University, we always have been celebrating the first Friday of December for the past many, many years. So welcome everyone, and we are going to start by hearing a few words from our Vice President for Student Affairs, Dr. Christopher Catchett.
Thank you, Dr. Allison. Welcome everyone to the 45th anniversary Pre-Kwanzaa celebration at Stockton University. It's a tremendous honor to offer a few words of welcome to everyone as we gather for this really important celebration. And I can feel the energy, even though we're all virtual, but glad that we're all connected to one another. And I wish everyone well, and please enjoy the program. I'll pass the torch to Ms. Amaya Roundtree, who's our president of the Unified Black Student Society, and she's going to offer a few words of welcome as well. Amaya?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our 45th annual Pre-Kwanzaa celebration. My name is Amaya Roundtree. As was said, I am president of Stockton's Unified Black Student Society. I am happy to be here with you guys, although we're not all together physically. I know that we're together virtually, and that you guys can sign up is just a blessing to be on this call. And we miss you guys dearly on campus. We miss seeing your faces. We miss having our weekly meetings. We hope you guys enjoy this program that we worked hard to put together for you. And we hope you guys enjoy the words you hear today from the brilliant mind behind Kwanzaa, Dr. Karenga.
Thank you so much, Amaya. And we are going to start our program. So normally the past few years, we have had this event in the campus center of main campus in Galloway, Stockton University. And one of the important parts of this event is that we always begin with libation, and we have a performance by the African American dance class that comes together every fall, and a big part of the class is preparing a performance for the Pre-Kwanzaa celebration. So we're going to show you some pre-recorded footage of our libation and of our African American dance class. So I hope you enjoy.
Habari Gani. I'm Dr. Pat Reed Merritt, and I'm here today to offer a libation. A libation is something that has been a tradition of ours at Stockton University, certainly for the past 45 years. We offer a libation to recognize our ancestors, those who have gone before us, those who have contributed to who we are today, and those that we always remember because we still can call their names. A libation is a traditional African tribute to those who, during their lifetime, the kinds of things that we want to remember. And so, I begin this libation by offering in the names of our ancient ancestors, those we did not know, but those whose stories have been told to us, those who were part of a proud African legacy, a proud African history that built a continent, that created masterful things in science, in education, and religion, and those who learned the importance of struggle at the very beginning of time. I offer this libation in the name of our ancestor, Asatiwa. And if you agree with me, you should say Ashe. That gives power to the words. So in the name of our ancestor, Sha Asatiwa, I offer this libation in the name of those who struggled on the African continent, who struggled with the colonizers who arrived long before they thought they could be removed from their own continent. I offer this libation in the name of warriors, male and female warriors, who struggled for the freedom of their people on their own continent. I offer this libation in the name of Anne and Zenga. I also offer a libation for those who crossed the waters, those who took that torturous journey to the New World, a new world that would prove devastating to African people and all of our descendants. I offer this libation in the name of those who began to struggle for our freedom, in the name of people like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. I offer this libation also for those who were part of our struggle for independence, those who were part of our movement for self-determination, those who determined that we as a people had something to offer, not just to our community, but to the world. I offer this libation in the name of people like W.E.B. Du Bois, Carter G. Woodson. And for those that we may know from more recent memory, those who contributed to our educational enrichment, those who decided that we should struggle to participate fully in society, those who also decided that the struggle must continue and that we must engage in activities, civil rights activities, Black Power activities, those who gave their life for our struggle of freedom. I offer this libation in the name of Mary McLeod Bethune, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. And for those who brought richness and beauty to our lives, those who created wonderful artistic expressions, those who lifted our spirits when we were down, I offer this libation in the name of people like Sarah Vaughan and Luther Vandross. And I ask you to call on your ancestors, those who helped build the person that you are today, those who you might remember, who are part of your memory, but are no longer with us. But we know in African traditions, as long as we can call their names, we're part of the living dead. I ask you to call out their names. Ashe. 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 I offer this libation to all of those who have gone before us, those who are no longer with us, also to those who are not yet born. But we offer these libations in the name of respect to all of our ancestors. I say Ashe, Ashe, Ashe Awa. Habari Gani. I want to welcome you to our 45th anniversary Kwanzaa celebration. I'm Dr. Pat Reed Merritt, and I am very proud and very happy that we can celebrate 45 years of Kwanzaa here at Stockton. As you know, Kwanzaa is a cultural holiday. It's one that's being celebrated all over the country and all over the world. And so when we greet you with Habari Gani, we're really asking you, what is the good word? For us, the good word is always Umoja, which means unity. And so I greet you again by saying Habari Gani. The Kwanzaa celebrations actually began right here in this dance studio 45 years ago. As a new faculty member at Stockton, I was teaching for the first time a course in African American dance. And we decided that we needed to have an opportunity for the dancers to present themselves. And this was all done around creating the Kwanzaa celebrations. Each year, members of the African American dance class present at the annual Kwanzaa celebrations, and it provides them with an opportunity to show you the African culture they've been studying. What has always been a tradition is that we welcome you with Fanga. Fanga is a welcoming dance. It comes from the west coast of Africa. And if you watch the dancers carefully, they will say to you with their body movements that we bear no arms. That means we have no weapons, but we welcome you all from the bottom of our hearts, from the north, the south, the east, and the west. Fanga is a dance that's performed anytime soldiers are returning home from war, anytime dignitaries are visiting your village, or anytime you want to make people feel real welcome. We hope you feel welcome at this annual Kwanzaa, and we're going to present Fanga. And what has always been the case for most of the 45 years, Fanga will be performed by members of the Afro One Dance, Drama, and Drum Theater, who have been a part of the Kwanzaas since the very beginning. And so we present to you now Fanga, Habari Gani. is it like to study African American dance and culture? Well, you're about to see. The students who are about to perform are doing a piece called The Visitors. And The Visitors is a dance that represents the opportunity for those who are not from the continent to go and visit. This dance uses traditional African steps, and it really tells the story of people who are seeking to find out more about their own background and more about their own heritage. The Visitors is followed by a group of young ladies who are competing with one another. One think they can do one up better than the other. Both of these dances are done to traditional rhythms, and they're being presented as a way of demonstrating what students do when they take the opportunity to study African American dance and African American culture. The Visitors.
wonderful round of applause to the Afro One dancers. And I'm particularly proud of those 6 students who performed for the African American dance class. None of those students are dance majors, but clearly you can see that they learned quite a bit in that class, particularly how to move their hips. So I'm very proud of those students. Next, I'm bringing up Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt, who is going to introduce our esteemed speaker. Dr. Reed Merritt. Looks like Dr. Reed Merritt is reconnecting. There she is.
Yes. Ghani. So glad to see you, Dr. Karenga. We certainly want to welcome you to this 45th anniversary Kwanzaa celebration. Most people probably do not know, but they'll see some evidence of it later on in the program. But Dr. Karenga has been a part of our Kwanzaa celebrations actually several times over the last 45 years. One of the incidents that, one of the occasions that I remember is on our 25th anniversary, there was a story that was written up in the Chronicles of Blacks in Higher Education, and they did a story on one of the longest institutions celebrating Kwanzaa in the US, and it was Stockton. And that was the 25th year. And they did a story, and the story focused on Dr. Karenga as the founder, and it also highlighted my role in creating the Kwanzaas here at Stockton. And so when we did the video compilations of what's been going on in the past 45 years, we actually saved that particular story and have a clip of it at the end of the program. Dr. Karenga was also with us on our 30th anniversary. I think it was our 30th when we celebrated our 30th anniversary Kwanzaa. He came then to and offered the keynote address. And so he has been to our campus, he has helped us celebrate, and I am so happy that he's able to be here today as we commemorate this 45th anniversary pre-Kwanzaa celebration. I remember when I started 45 years ago, it was really the beginning of celebration of Kwanzaas. Kwanzaa was created in 1966. I was fortunate to be raised in Philadelphia and be exposed to all the teachings of Dr. Karenga. And so when I arrived on Stockton's campus in '76, I had some sense of the kinds of things that could happen. I certainly didn't imagine then, 45 years later, we still be celebrating the way we are celebrating, but I'm happy that we are. As indicated earlier by Dr. Allison, this is our first virtual presentation. It's not the same, but it's the best that we can do in the midst of this pandemic. And so I want to welcome and again greet our speaker, Dr. Maulana Karenga. He is the founder of Kwanzaa. This is a cultural holiday that he created more than 50 years ago. Created it as a result of realizing that we as members of the African descendant community needed to celebrate our own cultural traditions. And it has been, again, a wonderful series of celebrations over these last 45 years. For those of you who do not know, Dr. Karenga, he is one of the leading intellectuals and scholars in our community and in the country, if not the world. Dr. Karenga is not just the creator of Kwanzaa, but he is the author of many, many books. He is the founder of many organizations that are committed to struggle and the advancement of African American freedom. And he is world renowned for his, not just his intellect, but for his creativity and for his willingness to continue to engage in the struggle for all of his adult life. And so it is certainly my great pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Karenga, who right now is also serving as, or continues to serve as the chair of the Africana Studies program at the University of California, Long Beach. I think it's Long Beach. And so Habari Ghani, and I welcome you again. Is it Long Beach or Long Branch? It's Long Beach, right? Yes. We have Long Beach here in Jersey.
Department of African Studies, California State University, Long Beach. So that's it. So thank you very much, Dr. Reed Merritt, Dr. Pat Reed Merritt. I'm so happy and very honored to come and celebrate with you, and I honor you for keeping the tradition alive so long. This is 45th anniversary, and so it's good to be here with you and affirm our collegiality throughout the years as activist scholars and as members of the National Council of Black Studies. So we send you all here greetings of solidarity and continued struggle. And we say, among us, you will always find your family in a peaceful place. And we wish for you blessings without number and all good things without end. And we bear witness as an African people that as our beginning was great and good, so shall our development throughout eternity be, if we dare struggle, speak truth, do justice, and walk in the way of rightness. Hocha, Ashe, Hedi. So today I wanted to just share with you thoughts on this year's theme, which I pick out every year, which is called Kwanzaa and the Well-Being of the World, Living and Uplifting the Seven Principles. This year, as always, millions of African people throughout the world African community on every continent in the world will celebrate this beautiful Pan-African holiday called Kwanzaa, a celebration of family, community, and culture. Kwanzaa comes each year as a special season of celebration, remembrance, rejoicing, reflection, and recommitment. It is a season which brings to mind and sets in motion the ancient and uplifting practices of our ancestors, gathering together in joyous and thankful harvest celebration of the good in the world. They celebrated the good of harvest of field and forest, the good of family, community, and culture. And they celebrated always and everywhere, as we celebrate, the good of life and the joy it brings, the rich diversity of all living creatures, and the enduring links of life that shape, build, and bind us together in the world. But as Kwanzaa comes this year, we are faced with a world marked and maimed by a series of interrelated crises. It is first and foremost, of course, the crisis of COVID-19 pandemic and the public health crisis that it produces, the loss of lives and livelihood, the devastated economy, and a national government grossly inadequate and unresponsive to this challenge. And then there's also the continuing environmental degradation, global warming and climate change, persistent conflicts and war, occupations of vulnerable peoples, countries, and lands, and continuing oppression and injustice, massive suffering imposed on vulnerable peoples of the world. Especially, however, does the pandemic, COVID-19, affect our lives and livelihood in ways that we could not have imagined. The effects and toll it has taken on our lives, the infections, the hospitalization, the disruption of our daily schedule. We could not have imagined this. And yet, at the same time, it challenges us to think in different and more demanding ways. Indeed, we are compelled to practice physical distancing, limited face-to-face contact at home, work, at places of worship, at school, and elsewhere. And this has taken a toll on us and our relationship. But we must, in fact, realize we are resourceful and resilient people. And we, as our foremother Nana Barrows taught us, we specialize in the wholly impossible. And in spite of all this going on, we must choose life. There is always two ways before us, as Bianchi said to the citizens of Memphis. Two ways before us, the way of life and the way of death. And we must always choose life. And thus we are compelled to reconceive our choreographies of closeness in different ways. We must think and rethink the rhythms of our daily lives. And we must rely on our lives with the realities we face without becoming other than we are and without losing the special soul spirit that grounds and defines us as a people. Especially must we act cooperatively to weather this winter storm. and to get beyond this pandemic and address the numerous pressing problems before us in the midst of systemic racism and oppression. And this cooperative emphasis of principles and practice of Kwanzaa offers us an excellent way forward. For the celebration and significance of Kwanzaa are deeply rooted in concepts and practices of shared good, of creating and sharing good in the world. Kwanzaa's ancient history has its origin in our ancestors' celebration of the first fruits of the harvest, which was a celebration not only of the shared good produced, but also the cooperative process used to produce it. In its most expansive form, the celebration of Kwanzaa, like the philosophy of Kawaida, out of which Kwanzaa is created. Kwanzaa is world encompassing with its conception and concerns. For its African ancient rooted culture teaching that teach us principles of thought and practice which not only guide how we relate among ourselves and our communities and our people, but also how we relate to others, to the earth, and indeed the world and all in it. As a first fruit harvest celebration, Kwanzaa invites us and encourages us to be thankful for the abundant good of the earth and to act in ways that show we will and continuously work for the well-being, health, and wholeness of the world. Certainly cultivating, harvesting, and sharing good in the world always begins with family, community, and culture. But we must also understand and assert ourselves as self-conscious and responsible inhabitants of the world, anchoring ourselves in the rich, ancient, and current resources of our own culture. We must extend outward and be rightly concerned, not only with the well-being and flourishing of our families and community, but also with the health, wholeness, and well-being of the world. Because it is the world that is our home and it actually determines how we will endure or not. And so I want us to see that in our culture is a conversation we must recapture, do Sankofa, reach back and recover it. And there is a way to remind us of our responsibility embedded in our languages. One of the three ways to say human in Swahili is Mlimwengu, which literally means world being. Not only do we have a word for being a human being, but we also have a word for being a world being, so that we never forget our humanity, but we never forget that it is embedded in a world of which we are a part. And so we know from the Odu Ifa, our sacred text from the Yoruba ancestors, that we are divinely chosen to bring good into the world, and that we must struggle to not let any good be lost. The text clearly says, let's do things with joy, for surely humans have been chosen divinely to bring good into the world. And that we are chosen not over and against anyone, but chosen with everyone to do one thing, to bring good in the world. So whether you are a journalist or a judge or a teacher or a student, a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever you are, you use your vocation to bring good into the world, to serve the people of the world, to serve the interests of the world itself. It is here that the vision and values of Kwanzaa call on us to think and act then in such a way that we not only prevent and counter evil and injury to the world, but we also create the foundation and framework for its health, its wholeness, and well-being as a shared and ongoing good for all of us. Clearly, this calls for us to embrace principles and engage in practices which support and achieve this aim. And Kwanzaa, again, offers a clear path to pursue this in the Nguzo Saba, the seven principles. For these core values are not simply principles, but also at the same time require ethical practices to think, feel, and bring good into the world. Kwanzaa is significant then not only because of what it says about the expansive meaning and enduring meaning it has, for millions throughout the world, African community. But Kwanzaa is important because of what it says about us as a people. For it speaks to our profound commitment to self-determination, to defining ourselves, to speaking for ourselves, to creating for ourselves, right? To raise above the earth projects that reflect our capacity for human greatness and our sensitivity to bringing good into the world. It is a time for us to celebrate ourselves, to sit down and measure ourselves in the mirror of the best of our culture and ask ourselves, where do we stand? That's why on the day of meditation, we sit down and ask 3 fundamental questions and seek to answer them. On January 1st, the day of meditation, Sikuyatamu, we ask ourselves, who am I? Am I really who I am? And am I all I ought to be? And if we speak truly of that, we have a world conception of ourselves, as Mary McLeod Bethune said, we are heirs and custodians of a great legacy, a world-encompassing legacy. And we must bear the burden and glory of that legacy with strength, dignity, and determination. As always, the season and celebration of Kwanzaa rightly calls to mind its origin in ancient African first fruit harvest celebrations and the model of harvest, which again stresses cooperative action. Remember now, cooperative action, the cooperative creation, gathering and sharing of good, especially the good of food as a life-sustaining good, but also the gratitude for the bountifulness and beauty of the world and the commitment to protect and preserve the earth as both a source of life and a site of the sacred. Because our ancestors believed that because the Creator invested him herself in the world, that the world was sacred itself. This Kwanzaa then comes with an increased concern, as you know, for the well-being of the world and all in it, because of the pandemic, but also because of the continuing pathology of racism and class and other forms of oppression. Continuing injustice and oppression imposed on humans throughout the world, as well as the injury and injustice inflicted on the earth itself. As Dr. Wangari Maathai, one of the great environmentalists of our time, stated, quote, today we are faced with a challenge that calls for a shift in our thinking, a shift that stops us from destroying the very basis of human life on the planet and causes us to, quote, assist the earth to heal her wounds and in the process kill ourselves. It is a fundamental teaching of Kawaida that we can only repair, renew, and remake ourselves in the process and practice of repairing, renewing, and remaking the world. Because that's the source of both our oppression and the pathway to our liberation. So we must be conscious always of the struggle we have. As Malcolm said, we must always ask ourselves, where do we fit in the world scheme of things? And we must see ourselves as a world historical people. It's here that we link the concept of practice of sharing the world with that of sustaining the world. For the well-being and flourishing of humans are tied, I repeat, to the health, the wholeness, and well-being of the world. Therefore, for our ancestors, sustainment is a dual concept of both well-being and right being. Well-being and right being of and in the world, a world of social and environmental justice, peace, physical and spiritual well-being, and ongoing development. And here again, the Nguzo Sabra are posed as a vital and valuable way to walk, work, and struggle in the world. It is the way we live our lives, do our work, and wage our struggle that determines the health, the wholeness, and the well-being of ourselves and the world. And their central message, the central message in this context for the Nguzo Sabra, in our talking about how we relate to the world, we say, relate rightfully, act justly, and walk gently in and for the world. Again, relate rightly, act justly, and walk gently in and for the world. And these 7 principles give us a way to do that, to relate rightfully, to act justly, and to walk gently in and for the world. Let's take first the first principle, umoja, unity. It speaks to our need to develop and sustain a sense of oneness, righteousness, and rightful togetherness. It has fundamental aspects to it, right? It has a question of identity, relatedness, and responsibility. First, we deal with our own identity. We're an African people, right? We're an African people, but we're related to other peoples of the world. So we have to take concern and ask ourselves, how do we extend our conception of ourselves? We're Africans in the world. We're Africans as part of humanity. And then third, we got to talk about our responsibility. Unity, umoja, as a principle and practice requires us to think of the oneness, unity in the family, community, nation, and race, and ultimately the world. Excuse me if I'm wrong. I mean, you have to think like that. There's a logic to this, right? So we have to keep our own identity. Now, we can't get lost in humanity and be abstract humans, right? We've got to be concrete human with a history and a culture, so we can speak our own special culture truth and make our own unique contribution to how this society and world are reconceived and reconstructed. But then we have to reach out, find common ground with the rest of the people in society and the world, and dare help rebuild the world in a more human image. So we start with family and community, but we reach out to the cosmos. This principle of umoja urges us to practice a principle and peaceful togetherness, rooted in mutual respect, justice, care and concern, security of our persons and people, and equitable sharing of goods. There must be an equitable distribution of the goods of the world. Otherwise, we can't talk justice. And it calls on us, this principle of umoja, calls on us to stand in solidarity with the oppressed, suffering, and struggling peoples of the world in the cooperative achievement of these goods. As our foremother Anna Julia Cooper taught us, she said, we take our stand on the solidarity of humanity, the oneness of life, and the unnaturalness of all special favoritisms of race, sex, country, or condition. This is our stand. We honor our foremother and our history by holding to that stand. The principle of Kuchachagalia is the second principle in Kwanzaa. Kuchachagalia means self-determination. It instructs us to assert ourselves in self-defining and dignity-affirming ways. Self-defining and dignity-affirming ways. Life-enhancing ways. World-preserving ways. And to create the miracles, the monuments, and meaningful relationships and achievement we want in our lives. We must make the magic we want. We must be the miracle that we look for. We must create from our own hearts and minds and hands the good world we want and deserve to live in. This Kuchachagalia reaffirms our right and responsibility to live free lives. It reaffirms our right to be ourselves and to free ourselves, to value and dialogue constantly with our own culture. It tells us that we must retrieve and bring forth the best of what it means to be African and human, and speak this unique and equally valid and valuable truth to the world. And it upholds the right of all peoples in the world to do and demand likewise. For as we maintain in Kawida philosophy, each people and culture is a unique and equally valid and valuable way of being human in the world. And no one needs to change themselves in order to please others. We must be ourselves and free ourselves. And we can't be free ourselves if we don't be ourselves. But we can't fully be ourselves until we fully free ourselves. So here's an unfinished struggle we wage every day. And Kwanzaa, as a celebration of things African people and things African, reminds us to be ourselves and to free ourselves and to speak our beautiful culture truth to the world. The principle of Ujima is the third principle of Kwanzaa. It means collective working responsibility. and teaches us that we must build a good and sustainable community, societies, and world we all want and deserve to live in, and leave as a worthy legacy for those who come after. This means, as Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune taught us, that quote, she said, we must remake the world. The task is nothing less than that. This is what our foremothers said, right? This is like in the early 30s, right? She's talking world encompassing ways, right? Not ghetto talk, she's talking world encompassing ways, right? Right? We've got to see ourselves beyond the constrictions of oppression, right? We live in the context of the pathology of systemic racism, the pathology of oppression through systemic racism. And sometimes it tends to narrow what we think if we don't think deeply, if we don't reach inside ourselves, be the Africans we are. We say in Kawaida, we are American by habit and African by choice. And if we practice self-determination, right, we must choose to be African. I said we are American by habit. We don't even have to think about it, right? We just get up in the morning, right? Hum a tune we heard, right? But to be African, to speak truth, to do justice, to care for the poor and the vulnerable, right? To have a rightful relationship with the environment, to cherish and challenge our children, right? Constantly struggle against evil and oppression and injustice, and always praise, pursue, and raise up to good. That takes an African mentality. We have to do it, right? Because sometimes we get in a larger society, there's a lot of selfishness, even at the top, as y'all know. We don't need to go into that, right? We're in a celebratory mood, but we have to talk about the problems of the society and the world. And that's what Kwanzaa does. It starts with remembrance. Remembrance of those who gave their lives so that we can live fuller and more meaningful ones. It starts with remembrance, as Fanny Luhema, our foremother, taught us. There are two things we should care about: never to forget where we came from, and always praise the bridges that carried us over. So we start with remembrance. And we move to reflection. And we move to recommitment. That's when we can then rejoice at our history, rejoice at our struggle, at our keeping the legacy they left us. And we can feel worthy in that celebration. We must always ask ourselves, who are we? Are we really who we are, and are we all we ought to be? So Kuchi Chagalia teaches us that. The next principle is Ujima, collective work and responsibility. And I said that, whatever, we're all work and responsibility. I have heard it, but I'm here. So Mary Bethune is where I did my trip. And she tells us we must remake the world. The task is nothing less than that. What does this mean then? It means, in addition to what I said when I diverted, it means engaging and working to address and effectively solve the major problems of this country and the world, including poverty, famine, food insecurity, access to clean water, access to health and housing, adequate health, solving the environmental degradation issue, obtaining economic security, dealing with this pandemic, and not forgetting the pandemic of HIV/AIDS, which is still affecting so many Black people, and the comorbidities that go along with us getting the COVID-19 virus, and all the other health issues. We have to address the quality education, confrontation with racism and sexism, all the other hostilities and phobias that make up the pathology of oppression. We have to deal with corporate plunder and pollution and depletion of the world's resources, with war, occupation of people's land in the country. We have to deal with the criminal and justice system. We have to deal with the rights of prisoners, right? And the right to justice in this country. We have to deal with police violence and the need to stop it. And we have to stop systemic violence with sanction sets, both in public policy and social thought. That means a struggle. That means Ujima. That means cooperative. collective work and responsibility. Ujamaa is the next principle. Cooperative economics, it reaffirms the ethics of harvest, shared work, and shared wealth. It thus is opposed to inequitable distribution of wealth. It's opposed to resource monopoly. It's opposed to plunder by the rich and powerful. And it teaches us to privilege the poor and the vulnerable, to uphold the rights of all people to live lives of freedom and dignity and well-being and ongoing development. Ujamaa also urges us to give rightful recognition and support to the workers of the world. The essential workers that we talk about, but all the workers actually transform the world so that we can live in it in ways that are dignity affirming, life enhancing, and world preserving. And we must also make note of the small farmers and farm workers of the world for the vital role they play in feeding and sustaining people on the planet, especially in the context of globalization of agriculture and its destructive effect on the lives and lands of people. The next principle is Nia, purpose. It teaches us to embrace and respond creatively to the collective vocation of restoring our people to the position and possibilities of great achievement through doing good in the world. For the sacred teachings of our ancestors in the Usia said, quote, the wise are known by their wisdom, but the great are known by their good deeds. So let us do good in the world. That makes us great. The great people that we know, we can name all of them. They are great because of their service to their people and to the world. And we must emulate them. And remember again, as I said earlier, the Udu E5 sacred text that we are divinely chosen to bring good into the world. This is a fundamental mission and meaning of human life. Next is the principle of Kuumba, the sixth principle. Creativity. Kuumba is creativity. It teaches us the moral obligation to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherit. And thus we must practice what we call Suruj's Ta, heal, to repair, renew, and remake the world, making it more beautiful and beneficial than we inherit. This has both ethical and aesthetic, natural and social implication. And it means this: to repair that which is damaged, to raise up that which is a ruin, to replenish what is depleted, to rejoin what is severed, to strengthen what is weakened, to set right what is wrong, and to make flourish that which is fragile and undeveloped. And finally, people, the principle of Imani, seventh principle, teaches and urges us to hold fast to the faith of our ancestors. That reassures us that through cooperative work and struggle, we can turn this around. We can put an end to the pandemic. We can put the pandemic behind us. We can put an end to famine and insecurity in the world. We can put an end to environmental degradation, which can be controlled, reduced, and ultimately ended. This is a faith that teaches us that the oppressed people in occupied countries of the world can and will be liberated so that the people can live free, good, and beautiful lives which all people deserve. We believe, and I use this as a model because Haiti stands as a central signature event and place and people in our history as African people. It is now in the occupation, right? What we wanted is to be free. And we must have the faith and make the effort to support it. It becomes a mirror of our struggle and our understanding of ourselves. And we have to have faith that through our struggle and the struggle of the people of Haiti themselves, that Haiti will blossom, grow abundant grain and fruit again. And that every other plundered, polluted, and depleted place in the world would do likewise. It's a faith I talk here that assures us that we can truly transform ourselves in the world and ensure clean air, pure water, safe and nutritious food for everyone, and a free, just, secure, dignity affirming and flourishing life and future for all the peoples of the world. This means that we must hold fast to our faith, the faith of our forefathers and mothers, our ancestors who taught us to believe in the sacred and the transcendent, in the good, the right, and the possible. These our ancestors, blessed be their name, taught us to know ourselves as bearers of dignity and divinity, divinely chosen to bring good into the world. Honor them who taught us to believe we can and must be an informed, active, committed, and powerful force for good in the world. Honor our ancestors by believing, holding the faith that teaches us to hold on to hope when everyone else thinks it is hopeless, to refuse to be defeated or dispirited or diverted from the righteous and relentless struggle we wage to bring good into the world, to radically transform this world, to repair it, to renew it, and to remake it. Howard Thurman said to us, in the midst of all great challenges, that there is a beauty in realizing that you rode the storm and remained intact. What a beautiful thought that we rode the storm. Let it be said that we ride this storm. Not only the pathology of COVID-19, but the pathology of racist oppression, that we rode the storm and remained intact. That we did not compromise our principles or become stingy with our practice of good and doing good in the world. This I tell you, Black people, I tell you the peoples of the world, riding the storm and remaining intact is a lesson of our history, the need of our present, and the promise of our future. I say it is the lesson of our history, the need of our present, and the promise of our future. For this is our duty, people, to know our past and honor it, to engage our present and improve it, and to imagine a whole new future and to forge it in the most ethical, effective, and expansive way. And this too, Black people, continue to struggle for good in the world. Keep the faith, hold the line, love and respect our people and each other, seek and speak truth, do and demand justice, be constantly concerned with the well-being of the world and all in it, and dare help rebuild the overarching movement that prefigures and makes possible the good world we all want and deserve to live in and leave as a legacy worthy of the name and history of Africa. Hotel, Ashe, Head is our Kwanzaa, happy Kwanzaa.
Sadi Sada. Thank you so very, very much. It was wonderful, so inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, audience, give a virtual round of applause to Dr. Karenga. We're not done yet, though, so don't log off, because if we were in person, we would next have the lighting of the Kwanzaa candles. So we have done that, pre-recorded that, and we would like you to see our Stockton students lighting the Kwanzaa candles. So I will show you in just a moment. And thank you, Dr. Karenga.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Dr. Maulana Karenga, professor and chairman of Black Studies at California State University, Long Beach, created Kwanzaa in 1966.
Umoja, to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race.
Jakalia, to define, name, create for, and speak for ourselves instead of being defined, named, created for, and spoken for by others.
Ujima, to build and maintain our community together, and to make our sisters and brothers' problems our problems, and to solve them together.
Ujama, to build and maintain our own shops, stores, and other businesses, and to profit together. Nia, to make our collective vocation the building and development of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. Kuumba, to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it.
Imani, to believe with all our hearts in God, our people, our parents, our leaders, our teachers, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Gregory Slayton, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Stockton on celebrating 45 years of Kwanzaa. 34 years ago, I was a student in the African dance class, and we performed at the Kwanzaa. And 34 years later, I continue to celebrate Kwanzaa with family and friends. So again, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Stockton on celebrating 45 years of Kwanzaa.
John Rayford. I graduated from Stockton State back in 1986. I was introduced to Kwanzaa through my Afro-American studies with Pat Reed Bookhart. And I went to my first celebration when my buddy Greg Slayton was one of the performers in Kwanzaa. So I think Kwanzaa is a great contribution to Stockton. I never heard about Kwanzaa before until I attended Stockton State College. So congratulations on 45 years of celebrating Kwanzaa at Stockton State University.
Habargani, Umoja. My name is Marjorie Barnes, and I'm an alumni of Stockton from the class of 1990. During my 4 years at Stockton, I participated in every Kwanzaa I was a dancer. I also was a poet. I am so excited to be a part of the legacy of Kwanzaa at Stockton. 45 years is such an accomplishment. And in these difficult times, we need more of this in our community. And so I just want to thank everyone who over the years have continued to make sure that Kwanzaa is a significant part of the community at Stockton. 45 years is a wonderful accomplishment. I'm looking forward to the next 45 years. Habar Ghani, Umoja.
I hope you all enjoyed the video tribute. And I hope that you are all inspired now to practice Kwanzaa this year. This has been a difficult year, just as Dr. Karenga mentioned, and it would be a beautiful time for you to reflect on the good that African culture has brought to the world. And as I mentioned earlier, the traditional celebration begins December 26th. Thank you everyone for participating today. And I'd like to definitely take a minute just to thank some folks in particular. Stockton University has celebrated Kwanzaa for 45 years, and we could not possibly have done that without the support of the Office of the President. So I want to thank you to President Harvey Kesselman for his continued support of this event. The Office of the Provost continues to support our event. Dean Lisa Honaker of the School of Arts and Humanities, we want to thank her for making sure that we were able to get Dr. Karenga this year as our speaker. We want to thank the Unified Black Student Society, who has been co-sponsors of this event for many, many years. Thank you to the Office of Student Development, and the director of the office, Jeffrey Wakeman, and Diane Stalling, Assistant Director of Student Development. We want to thank Marcus Johnson, Director of Residential Education and Student Services, who was able to gather our student candlelighters together. Thank you to those students, they did a wonderful job. Thank you to the Afro One Dance Ensemble and the student dancers from the African American Dance class who did a wonderful job. Thank you to our drummer. And last but not least, to production services, particularly Amanda Martinez, who edited our 2 video presentations. Normally, what would happen now in our live Kwanzaa celebration is that we would all gather in a huge circle, and what would we yell, Dr. Reed Merritt?
Harambe.
Yes, we would yell out Harambe to the top of our lungs. And then we would feast and fellowship. Unfortunately, we cannot do that together today, but I encourage you to support a Black-owned restaurant tonight and go out and get some of the delicious food that we might have had together. So thank you all for joining our virtual Kwanzaa celebration. Thank you again to Dr. Karenga and to all who are involved in organizing this event. Good night.
Thank you, Archie.